So we have been having meetings with Metropolitan almost daily to talk about these issues and challenges and to come up with a methodology on how we manage through this, given that this has never happened before and we don't have a playbook to really guide us. Metropolitan has what is called a water supply allocation plan, and it's been in place for many years. And that plan is normally used to allocate water when there is a shortage. But the shortage that we're dealing with is a little bit unique and different than all of those that we've experienced in the past. Because of that, that plan is not really exactly applicable to the situation we're facing. So what we've been doing is meeting. We have another meeting tomorrow to discuss an approach to allocate the limited supplies to the state water project dependent areas. And we're looking at two different strategies, one being what you would call an action-based strategy, and the other one I would call more of an outcome or performance-based strategy. The action-based strategy is really rooted in all of the member agencies that are affected to agree to a certain common set of requirements or measures that we would implement in our service areas to reduce demand. And an example might be establishing a 1 day a week watering restriction and enforcing that and limiting the duration of that watering schedule. So that would be an example of an action-based approach. The other approach is more of a performance or outcome-based approach where Metropolitan would say for each member agency that they need to reduce their demands by some predefined amount, percentage amount, and that essentially the agency can determine their own means and methods to do that. And then if you exceed that, then you are subject to some consequences. And I mention consequences because Metropolitan is anticipating that despite the strategy that they picked, there will be consequences for non-compliance, so to speak. And generally the thought there is that there needs to be teeth to the proposal to ensure that all of the member agencies actually indeed implement that proposal and follow through with it. So I want to then jump to slide number, page number 127, I believe it is. Actually, why don't you just go back for a second, Stephen, to the map there that we skipped over. This is a map that shows the affected areas. So these are the state water project dependent areas. And you can see from the map, what you see on the far left is the service area of Calleguas, Las Virgenes then, and then LA, the majority of the city of Los Angeles in the blue. And the blue signifies the agencies that are supplied from the Jensen filtration plant, which is on the west branch of the California aqueduct. And then in the red, what you see there is Upper San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District and the Inland Empire Utilities Agency and a little bit of Three Valleys Municipal Water District. They are on the east branch of the California aqueduct. So then let's go to 127 now. So 127, this is a really important chart. And really this illustrates what we anticipate for the current calendar year. This is the calendar year 2022. The bars represent, the height of the bars represents what you would call the normal demands of the state water project dependent areas in aggregate. Those are all the areas that you saw on the map. And then the different colors of the bars represent how that demand will be met, by what supply. And you can see there's a legend on the bottom, and you'll see the dark blue, it signifies what is called Wisdom Supplies, WSDM. These are supplies that Metropolitan has stored and has the capability of delivering from existing supplies that they have available to them. The light blue is the 5% allocation. And so, then the shaded with the hatch marks, that is what's called flexible storage. So that's storage in both Lake Paris and Castaic that can be accessed by Metropolitan. And then the yellow is what I described before, the human health and safety supplies that can be triggered through that special provision in the State Water Project contract. And then the white bars, most important, are essentially unmet demands. So these are, it's shown here as need to conserve or underdevelopment. So these are demands that currently there is not a supply identified to meet that need. So the takeaway in looking at this chart is, one, by the end of June, the allocation from the State Water Project, as shown here, will be exhausted. And so that's important because that's coming up pretty quick. The human health and safety supply, the yellow, will be triggered probably in July. And so that means that that is a certainty at this point, that this is not a question. And so prior to this update, there was always some question as to whether we would receive a late season storm that might substantially change the water supply situation. And that does not appear at all to be the case, so that we will be in midsummer drawing on human health and safety supplies. And then as early as September, you'll see that there is a small part of that white bar, which is an unmet demand. So then I want to flip to the next slide, which really just illustrates the point that that I'll leave with, is that we really need to do everything possible right now to conserve water. And I think it's obvious based on the conditions that that's the case. But what this slide shows is if you spread that white bar as far to the left as possible, what you do is you minimize the impact towards the end of the year. And the idea is if we can begin with strong and robust conservation and reduce our demands early, and to do it consistently through the summer and all the way through the end of December, we avoid a large white bar or a large unmet need towards the end of the year. And that is really the goal of all of us in the State Water Project dependent areas, and it is a very urgent goal and need. And actually, we have items on the agenda that Joe will talk about a bit later, where we'll begin to lay out what our strategy is to accomplish that. And I don't want to get into those yet because I think Joe has some information that will be helpful, but those are items 9A and 9B. I'll just add, though, that those two items, 9A and 9B, I anticipate to be the first in what may be additional measures that are needed to deal with this challenge. And so 9A and 9B are going to be certainly helpful. They are going to help us to begin reducing demands to really move those bars down and eliminate the white portion. But depending on how things go and the effectiveness of us collectively in the State Water Project dependent areas, we may need additional measures to navigate this. And those measures could include the possibility of a complete and altogether restriction of all outdoor watering. And this is a pretty substantial item, something, again, that's never been considered or contemplated. We have been discussing what that might look like and some of the means to mitigate the effects, but I did want to just be very forthright that that is a possibility depending on how things go, and that we are intending and propose to let customers know that that is very much on the table and the conditions are such that that could happen. And as the conditions unfold, we will think more about how we could minimize the impact of that condition if it did indeed come to pass. And some of the ideas that we have are hand watering of trees so that trees can be preserved, really emphasizing and making available the use of recycled water, and especially our fill station that we have at Rancho. So I think I covered a lot there. I want to stop, and I suspect you may have questions, but I'm just hopeful that painted the picture and will help to support the recommendations that we make with items 9A and B.
Thank you, Dave.